Buenos días. Me llama Bill. Español muy poquito. No, sorry, English. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my farm, but also about sustainability. Sustainability to a U.S. farmer is not a word that we use in a presentation very often. It's what's taught to us by our fathers and our grandfathers and our mothers and our grandmothers. This is what we do every day. And people tell us that we try not to, or we hear the bad things about sustainability, but to me, when someone asks me, how am I sustainable? I'm going to tell you how, by showing you what I do every day to create a better farm and a better environment for my children to go on. So my farm, there's Minnesota, way up north, almost to Canada. Can get very cold. Last year, 30 degrees below Celsius was our low. So mucho frío, mucho frío. But in the summer, like now, 90 degrees, 30 Celsius, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 95, high humidity. I'm a fourth generation farmer. My fifth generation, my children are helping now on the farm. My father is still in the operation. We farm about 2,000 acres, I'll show you, and I also sit as a director on the American Soybean Association board, also the Minnesota soybean growers. Here's my family, my lovely wife on the right there. We were at a fundraiser event for a youth Christian organization. My four children, Luke, Lance, Liam, and Anna. On your left, that's a planter, a test plot planter I built to test fungicides and different practices for sustainability on a small scale on our farms. We have about 809 hectares, 50-50 corn soybean rotation, and it's family owned and operated. Some more pictures of my family. My little guy Liam loves the tractor and the sprayer, so every day I go to work, he's right next to me, follows me to work, sits with me in the tractor, makes sure that he's there. The little girl in the picture, me and my wife, my daughter Anna, Liam, that's my niece, Abigail. Abigail lives in Colorado. She was just in Minnesota. Her mom, my sister, owns one of our farms. So the whole operation, just like Annie, is based on family. And I'm trying to work on my planter, and there's Liam on the left waving at the camera, trying to think he's funny. Lance picking rock, and then one of our planters. Sustainability, so conservation tillage. One thing I wanted to talk about a little bit that Annie mentioned on was like no-till. Just like in Mexico or any place else in Central America, one practice isn't always best. A lot of the U.S., no-till due to moisture is very important. In Minnesota, we get, right now in the spring, a lot of moisture. Last week, I had 8 inches of rainfall in 1 week. Way too much. So my crops are struggling with too much moisture. So we have to do conservation tillage, till the soil a little bit to let air in. Otherwise it gets like sealed, stagnant, and actually can ruin the crops. That's our best management practice. No-till doesn't work as well for us. But for Annie, where there's less moisture, it's very important. Water management and crop nutrition management, again, these are things that we do every day. We don't wake up and think, okay, we're going to manage water today. It's just part of how we farm. So here's a picture of the conservation tillage. We have a buffer strip there. That's grass that we leave year-round, so any nutrients that would come off of the field can't get into the water system. It filters it out. Our tree line for wildlife habitat, manage different types of animals on the farm. 63% of U.S. soy production uses conservation tillage. It's probably, when you figure in no tillage and everything, it's higher than that. Very few people plow the ground and make it pitch black anymore. And if that happens, there's usually a reason. It's usually disease management, and then they go back to conservation tillage. This builds up the soil profile, helps the roots, gives air into the soil, creates that micronutrient system that we heard about earlier. Water management. So on our farm, we have about 250 acres, 100 hectares of buffer strips and wetlands. This is a voluntary system. The government does not mandate us yet to put these in. But we as farmers look at this as the best management practice to help if we have rain events, like we had a 3-inch rain event last week in 2 hours. Our crop ground can't take that kind of rain without washing. So these strips and these desilting basins help get the nutrients out of the water to protect the water system. We donated 35 acres, and you can see the middle picture is part of the basin. It's 3 ponds that desilt out any nutrients or any soil that comes off of our farms and our neighbors' farms before it goes into the city of Worthington's water supply. So our farm sits above the city of Worthington, 10,000 people, and our water is what they drink. So it's our job as farmers to make sure that nothing gets into that water that could hurt your children or my children or anybody else's. So the water you see coming out on the left, that is the spillway where the water comes over. And it's hard to see, but the water on the right, you can see the bottom, you can see the rocks. The water's coming out of our fields so clear you could technically drink it. Now, you shouldn't because there's always bacteria in the environment, but that water is clean. A little help with like taking the nutrients out and the bacteria out in the city where that you can drink that. We talk about biodiversity. One thing that I hear a lot about is farmers in the U.S. are plowing up wetlands and destroying the environment. We have very, very, very strict laws against it in the United States. 1985 was a sodbuster law, Sodbuster Act, that prohibits any farmer or anybody, cities or anybody, from destroying a wetland. So from 1985, we've actually replaced over half of the wetlands destroyed prior to 1985. And yet, like Julio said, we've produced twice as much food for twice as many people. That's using biotechnology, nutrient management, and water management. And then we have the Endangered Species Act. So the swans, the deer, any animals and livestock, it's our job as producers to take care of the environment. And we do that on a daily basis. Again, we do it because it's the right thing to do, not because somebody from the government necessarily told us to do it. The middle is the trumpeter swans. In our farm, we've had, the last 5 years, they were endangered. Now they're off the endangered species list. We've had a same pair come back and have babies every year. And we're one of the few places in the country that actually had, they call them syngots, actually had syngots on their farm. Oops, went the wrong way. Crop nutrient management. Science plays a huge part in agriculture. Every day, every year, I use science to try to put the right amount of nutrients, use the weather, which we can't predict, the right crops on the ground to try to produce the most I can. I want to be profitable. If I'm not profitable, I can't sustain my family. Used to increase the efficiency of all nutrient sources while reducing production and environmental risks. So when we do this, our goal is to produce more with less. You know, we always hear about nitrogen, phosphorus in the waters. We're trying to put the least amount of nutrients to get the most out of it. And that's the goal of any farmer. Now, does it always work? No. But I guarantee you that everybody in this room, Annie will agree, everybody that produces crops is trying to do this the most efficient way, because it's expensive. These nutrients are very expensive. This U.S. Soybean Sustainability Assurance Protocol, I've spoken this a couple times. The U.S. farmer signs up for basically we call it the farm program. And in that gives us the abilities and the restrictions to do things correctly. Because farmers in the United States follow these laws, USDA and USEC created this U.S. Soybean Assurance Protocol. And so 275,000 plus soybean farmers are considered sustainable for U.S. production and world production. Unilever, one of the strictest companies about sustainability, got presented this here, and they totally agreed with how we did it. And as long as we follow the government rules and we follow our production standards that we've set, we're considered sustainable. Talk about family farms. Now, part of my job, you heard, is I'm an accountant also, and I do business management. I think this number is even skewed a little low. 84% of farmed land is owned by families and not corporations. But in the United States, because of tax laws, corporations are sometimes family-owned corporations for taxation purposes. So you hear a corporate farm, that is still might be 3 or 4 generations of a family own that corporation, operated as a family, but they're taxed as a corporation. So that number is higher than that for family farms. There are a few larger corporations truly still based off family principles. There's Lance and Liam, this two of my boys, my second and my fourth, we were planting. Oops, I hit the wrong button, sorry. That's my family. As you can all see, I have a very beautiful wife. She's a lot smarter than I am. And she'll be the first one to tell you that. My wife's a nurse by trade. She has her PhD doctorate in nursing and human health. So I totally relate to people in the room trying to make a better place for people and feeding the world. My wife is also my biggest critic. So if I do something outside of what she considers safe or sustainable for those 4 children, I don't need to answer to you, I need to answer to her, and she's meaner, just so you know. So is there any other questions? And I thank you for the presentation, and have a good day.